Ahoy everyone, Tightrope here. Today we're having a listen to the new sound changes, and I will be demonstrating the gameplay changes that arrived in the 2.2 patch for Company of Heroes 3, codenamed Scarlett Bison. Relic have made quite a few audio changes in patch 2.2, including a bunch of new sound effects. During one of the preview videos for this patch, they mentioned that they have a new person working on sound, so let's check out their work, because up until this point, it's been one of the weak points of COH3. Those are all sounding pretty good, especially the heavy mortar. I really like that one. And this is the exact kind of change that COH3 needs. I've talked about it many times in the past, more distinctive sound effects, so I'm really happy with that. So here is my wish list for the next units to get sound effect changes, and we're starting out with the quad. At the moment, the quad sounds exactly the same as a single vehicle mounted machine gun, which is kind of lazy. So quad needs a good one, especially, you know, in Code 2, the quad sounded really cool. Grenades, stun grenades at the moment, I think they've just got like a generic explosion, same as pretty much every other grenade. It'd be nice if they had a special effect. Gammon bombs are the best grenade in the game, I think, in terms of stats. Used to share sound effect with the bundle grenade. Doesn't anymore, just sounds like a normal grenade, so that would be nice. Like Grossatori, the SMG sounds exactly the same as like the assault gren one. It'd be nice if their SMG was a bit more distinctive, and the bulldozers still being left with like a generic explosion that has been now been phased out from a lot of vehicles in this previous patch. So it'd be nice if it got like a cooler one. Sounds plain. And finally, we've got the LG40. That's still been left with like a generic kind of shooting sound. It might be the same as the bulldozer, in fact, compared to like the 2-pounder, where that's got a unique effect. Back in patch 1.7, Relic introduced some sound attenuation changes, which basically made the sounds on screen louder and the sounds off screen quieter, along with some more directionality focus to the sound effects. But one of the problems with that was that when a squad was dying off screen, quite often those kind of warnings where they're like, oh, I'm dying over here, will get drowned out by other audio. And apparently now in patch 2.2, they have fixed that. So let's check it out. So to test this, I've got a hectic fight over here. Everything's invulnerable, so nothing's dying. They shouldn't drown it out too much, but pretty hectic fighting. And then I'm going to run the pyros in here on the other side of the map and see if we can notice them, their audio cues. Yeah, I mean, I can hear it.
Our frontline pioneers are dead.
If there's a lot of fighting happening though, like a lot like there was there, it's still going to be pretty tricky to hear. Relics say they fixed missing height advantage warnings, which I didn't know were a thing. So I did some experiments running up and down hills with various mainlines. There's both the shooter and the one receiving the fire, and I couldn't reliably get these to trigger. But I did hear this warning from the Tommies at one stage. And maybe that warning is based off the old elevation bonus, which completely nullified the enemy's cover, so not as relevant for these days, where the height advantage only gives a 25% accuracy bonus, no cover nullification. So between it being hard to trigger this, and maybe the warnings being a bit out of date, I'm not sure this was an improvement. So the 2.2 patch is yet another step forwards for the sound in Company of Heroes 3, which is good because that was one of the worst aspects of COH3 at launch. But there are still a few more changes that I would like to see or hear, to be more specific. I would still like fights happening elsewhere on the map to be more audible from across the battlefield, more similar to how it was in COH2 and COH1, because it just helps you keep track of engagements. Heavy tanks, I think, well, just a lot of vehicles in general, like the engine noises are super quiet. I barely can hear them at all. And then on top of that, stacked on top of that, like if you put them into fog of war, like they're just basically inaudible. You know, quite often in COH2, once a King Tiger is within about 80 range of your unit, you'd hear like in the fog of war, kind of helped you keep track of things. And I quite like that. But back the other way, something like a Kruitschützen shouldn't be audible in the fog of war, I don't think. At least, like, you know, if it crushes into stuff, sure, it gives it away its positioning, but I think you can get an unfair advantage from just like listening in the fog of war from across the map. You know, you don't have to have a unit anywhere in the vicinity to hear it, and it's just too easy to then like scout the location of the Kruitschützen, send your 4x4 over to kill it, and I don't think you should get an advantage like that right from like the first 30 seconds of the game. Now let's take a look at the core mechanics changes that arrived in patch 2.2. And we're starting out with loading onto transports or tank riding. So previously, if the vehicle was moving, you gave an order for a squad to get in. The vehicle will come to a complete halt. Squad will jump in, and only once they're fully inside, the vehicle would set off again. But here we are now back in patch 2.2. Give the order. The vehicle slows down, maybe to about a third of its normal speed, and then continues on. So going to be quite smooth getting in and out. Probably going to be a pretty big buff to DAC because they're getting in and out of their 250s quite often. The same change applies to tank riding. Previously the tank had to come to a complete halt, which meant overall tank riding wasn't very popular in the late game, even after all the buffs it received in terms of mounting speed. Whereas now, jumping on, slows the tank down slightly, but still kind of cruising along. Again, I do expect these changes to be most beneficial to DAC because, you know, like, got Assault Grenadiers with Assault Disembark, or the Panzer Grenadiers Vet 1 abilities, which means, you know, jumping in and out of vehicles is quite good for them. Relic also made a nice quality of life change in this area. Previously, if you had a squad riding a tank, the tank got shot, the squad would disembark on the spot, and then the tank would continue on forwards. But now, if you give an attack move command, after the tank gets shot, the squad jumps off and they will follow that same attack move command forwards. So it just makes it easier to use tank riding, makes it more viable. Now you have the ability to reinforce units that are in hold. So say if they're in a garrison, a constructed structure, or something like a 250, if you've got a source of reinforcement nearby. As you can see there, they start auto reinforcing because I've got auto reinforce enabled. So yeah, it's going to make Garrison's quite a lot stronger, same with forward reinforce. Like, could be pretty hard to dislodge a machine gun from a building now as well. It's going to be a really strong option. Probably going to be quite good for DAC as well, because they have a lot of this stuff. Looks like at the moment, though, it's working for the unit auto reinforce, working for the unit inside the garrison, not working for the unit inside the hardpoint or the 250, even though the option is here. You can see I've got the hotkey. It's on W, not on F. F is what it normally is for out in the open. So a little bit confusing there, but alright. See if it works in base with this one. Okay, it's working in base for some reason. Not sure what's going on here, why these aren't auto-reinforcing. Another quality of life change related to in-hull behavior. You can see I've got this low health 250 here with an engineer inside. And I want to repair the 250. Now I can simply select the engineer by either clicking down here or pressing tab. And then I can just right-click on it straight away from here. They'll jump out and they'll start repairing it. So you don't need to manually give the order to jump out, wait until they're out, then give the repair order. You can just do it straight from inside of the half-track. And then, of course, if you want to queue up, getting back inside from here, hold Shift, Control, right-click, as always. And then as soon as the repairs are completed, the squad will jump back inside. So yeah, it's going to make it way smoother, especially for DAC, to get repairs off on their 250s in the early game, just less fiddly micro. The final change to in-hull behavior is related to constructed defenses. Things like bunkers or fighting positions. Previously, if you had a unit inside these and the structure died, every model inside had a 50% chance of dying. Same as how vehicles work. When the vehicle dies, every model inside has a 50% chance of dying. But that is no longer the case. No models will die whatsoever when these are killed. So Relic want you to stay inside those constructed defenses until the bitter end. But there's no change to like ambient buildings. You need to jump out of those, otherwise your squad will get flattened inside of it. And same story, well, similar story for this. Still have 50% chance to lose a model on vehicle deaths. Only change is to constructed defenses. There are also changes to vehicle pathfinding in this patch. Previously, it was pretty easy for your tank to phase through an enemy's tank, especially if both players were giving a lot of input commands rapidly. Phase through is quite possible, and that can kind of make it hard to outposition your enemy, stop them, block them off, stuff like that, and maybe gave the edge to like nimble tanks. They're able to like zip through, heavy tanks get through onto the other side, easily outposition and catch their rear armor. But that should no longer be the case. So I'm trying to phase through the elephant. It's not working. I'm going to try to get around to the side a bit more, then phase through. Can't do it. Still like a little bit of overlap if you come in from the right angle, but you actually can't like get right through. And conversely, that means that like if I get around onto the rear of the elephant, it's not going to be able to phase through me anymore. It has to go around. So it gives you more chances to try and outplay your opponent by blocking their vehicle, but at the same time you're not going to be able to phase through. This is good. I do think the pathfinding was too tolerant before this. Apparently though, if there's only one pass, like on a narrow bridge or something, you will still be able to do some phasing through. I'm happy with most of the new sound effects and quality of life changes, so the patch is looking promising so far. And if you enjoyed this video and want to support, I hope you consider coming on board as a Patreon backer.